Let's bring in our panel now. In Tunis, we have Ines Djedidi. She's a political activist who participated in the recent protests. And with me here in the studio is Sami Hamdi, editor-in-chief of the online current affairs magazine, The International Interest. I thank you both for joining us here on The Newsmakers. Ines Djedidi, let me begin with you. Tell me why you took to the streets and decided to protest when Mohammed bin Salman came to town.
Okay, so here in Tunisia, we've been following, what happened from the moment Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman arrived to power, and what happened with the Saudian purge, with what happened with the Prime Minister of Lebanon, the mistreatment, what's happened in Yemen. And finally, ultimately, what happened with Jamal Khashoggi. And we found that what happened was very brutal and with an unprecedented cruelty. When we heard that the Crown Prince is coming to Tunisia, we found that, this was not the right moment, especially that we understood that if he's coming, it was to whitewash his bloody face and reputation, with the credibility given by a democratic country like Tunisia.
Right.
So we don't want to give this credibility. Yes.
Yes, and I'm glad you explained it so fully. Sami Hamdi, those protests in Tunis, what did they tell us about the current divisions in the Arab and Muslim world when it comes to not just Saudi Arabia as a country, but the person, Mohammed bin Salman?
I think we have to remember that most of the leaders in the Middle East are not loved by people generally, neither by their own people, neither by people elsewhere. I think it's very interesting that Tunisia protested against Mohammed bin Salman, emphasizing that there is this mood amongst the Arab world that Mohammed bin Salman should not get away with killing Jamal Khashoggi. Let's remember, Jamal Khashoggi is not the first journalist to disappear. There are other journalists who've disappeared in other countries, other journalists kidnapped, rendition. Amnesty is talking about Sheikh Suleiman al-Dawish, who's been killed under torture in prison. Salman al-Ouda is in prison. Abdulaziz al-Tarif is in prison. Awad al-Ghani is in prison. We can name so many names with them of these people in prison. So I think there's always a disconnect between the people and the leaders. I think what we have to be wary of is that the way Mohammed bin Salman has chosen the countries to visit, he's chosen weak countries or countries who can't say anything to him. He chose Bahrain, which is a Saudi proxy. He chose UAE, who are his allies. He chose Sisi, who relies on his money. And he chose Tunisia, which is so desperate for investment that the government will not actually do anything to Mohammed bin Salman. In fact, he was welcomed. Beji Qaid al-Sibsi was happy to see him because they're in an economic situation, they're a very bad economic situation. They need that investment. So I think with regards to these protests, we should be wary also that Tunisia is a country where protests are regular now, over unemployment, over high suicide rates, over this recent inheritance reform that's taking place. So in other words, this protest is just one of many that is already taking place in Tunisia. It's not necessarily just because of Mohammed bin Salman.
Okay, so Ines, let me pose this to you. Despite your protests, despite the fact that there are multiple reasons why you didn't want Mohammed bin Salman to visit, your government needs Saudi investment. The economy is not great. The Saudis need to invest in your country to keep it going. And ultimately, there are many other countries in the region that need Saudi money via an alliance. Is that the reality?
Okay, to be true, since the revolution, Saudi Arabia didn't help Tunisia because they were not, in favor of what happened of the revolution, of the democratic process, and they didn't help. We received help from other countries, but not from this country. But until now, there is no concrete help. Even after the visit and during the meeting, the official meeting held during the visit, I remind that the visit was only for 4 hours. So it was not. There was no agreements, nothing. Serious to be. Promised by Saudis during this visit.
Right.
So I am like other people. The generation of who believe in this revolution and a change in the politics and the economy of the country. We believe that the wealth should come from locally. We should create wealth by empowering our own economy, not only relying on foreign investment. It could be from Saudi or from Europe or from other countries.
Right.
This is not the solution to our local problems.
Sami Hamdi,
this is what I believe.
Okay, certainly. So Sami, as I look at the fault lines in the Middle East right now and the Cold War, if you like, between the Iranians and the Saudis, it's something I face myself on this program. If I ask tough questions of the Saudi guests, they say, oh, you're pro-Iran, you're pro-Houthi, you're pro-Assad. How dare you question Mohammed bin Salman? How dare you question, our version of events? What's going on right now in terms of those fault lines in the region, triggered by the Khashoggi case? I mean, Saudi Arabia didn't decide to invade or decide to start fighting the Houthis in Yemen the day after Khashoggi was killed. It didn't decide to execute people for witchcraft and sorcery and so forth after it killed Jamal Khashoggi. This was happening long beforehand. But there was something about that event and everything that happened afterwards that seems to have exacerbated the fault lines in the region. Why?
I think what we have to be aware of first and foremost is that Saudi does many things wrong, 100%. Saudi is a vicious country in the way that it treats its opposition and whatnot. But the reason why I object to the use of Yemen necessarily as an example to use it is simply because Yemen was a situation where all the parties came together, national dialogue, national government, and the Houthis did the military coup. Irrespective, now you have a humanitarian crisis. With your question of Khashoggi and how Khashoggi has influenced that, Yemen in particular, and the fault lines.
Yemen and everything else.
Yemen and everything else.
Right.
You've seen that the US now have publicly come out and undermined the Saudi operations in the region, something that they didn't do beforehand. You'll remember that James Mattis was giving a talk in Bahrain, and he said that in 30 days they have to meet in Stockholm. But at the same time, these are words, not necessarily actions. Even though there is talk of that the US planes have stopped, US has stopped refueling Saudi planes, if you'll notice that today that there was a UN resolution which tried to call for a ceasefire in at least Hudaydah in order to promote peace talks in Stockholm. And the Saudis and the UAE essentially lobbied, saying if this resolution goes past, we will not go to Stockholm for talks. And the US also lobbied, saying that it will ruin the peace process if this UN resolution goes through, implying that in the grander scheme of things here with these fault lines, the Jamal Khashoggi case, even if it has applied pressure on Mohammed bin Salman, and we've seen some ostensible change in tactics, the realities stay exactly the same. Saudis and the US see Iran controlling Iraq, dominant in Syria, dominant in Lebanon, dominant in Yemen. In other words, the US now, and this is the reality, the harsh reality, the tragedy of the Khashoggi case, which is that when you ask the US, if you've seen Mike Pompeo's article in the Wall Street Journal, the op-ed, where he basically says that, guys, Khashoggi is a tragedy and a bad case, but we need Saudi Arabia because we're going to need to fight the Iranians. And the reality is, Imran, let's be brutally honest, from a Saudi perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, they are correct. Yeah, Iran is encroaching on Saudi Arabia.
But it does look like it says, well, I know Michael killed Fredo, but we need to make sure that we need to make sure that the Corleone family goes clean at some point, and we need to help them, right? The point being that in response to the Khashoggi case, they want to move on so quickly. If you want to question the Khashoggi case, you are met with a response of Iran. Fine, we'll deal with what Iran's done in the region. But in response to it, the first pivot is Iran. Doesn't it fundamentally weaken their argument and makes the electorate in these different countries that support the Saudis suspicious of the United States and others and their alliance with this country?
Imran, if the Iraq war didn't make you suspicious of the Americans, if the war in Afghanistan didn't make you suspicious of the Americans, if Guantanamo didn't, if expanding the drone strike program didn't, if not punishing banks for causing a global economic crisis didn't make you suspect, I have no idea why this Khashoggi case is going to make that much of a difference. Right. The standards in this region are different. This is a region, Imran, where you've seen Sisi open fire on thousands of protesters in broad daylight while they are running into mosques for safety, opened fire, killed hundreds, and he was giving a talk in the Nelson Mandela Forum at the UN General Assembly. Right. This is a region which has seen Bashar al-Assad massacre his people simply because he did not want to give free and fair elections. This is a region that has seen Libya descend into civil war, and the Italians and the French are looking after the oil interests in Libya, both competing to come up with a political solution to be the leader in Libya, while the US only gets involved when Haftar takes over oil ports because it affects the oil price. This is a region where the standards are different. Khashoggi is one journalist of many. This is a region which has seen oppression towards repression of journalists since the 1960s, 1970s.
So this is going to blow over.
The Khashoggi,
and it's business as usual.
It depends on the Turks and it depends on the CIA. The Turks are not willing to let Mohammed bin Salman go. They believe that Mohammed bin Salman has been integral in terms of that he supported the Ombesh Tammuz, the 15 July coup. They believe Mohammed bin Salman, well, not believe, he actually did. He was in London saying Turkey is part of an axis of evil. No, as in Mohammed bin Salman in London said he is part of an axis, Turkey is part of an axis of evil. They've been lobbying in think tanks to try to push this narrative that Turkey is supporting terrorism. President Erdogan despises Mohammed bin Salman. Turkey despises Mohammed bin Salman. They want his head to roll. The problem is, however, Trump is telling the Turks, he's sending Gina Haspel, he's talking with Erdogan. There are rumors he's lobbying Erdogan while they are in Argentina to say, listen, we will just go easy on him. Just let's come to some sort of agreement. Khalid al-Faisal was rumored, reported that he came to Ankara and said, we will lift the blockade on Qatar. We will give you back your investments. We will do whatever you want us to do. Please just drop the case. And Erdogan said no. The reality of the situation is this. How far can Turkey go in implicating Mohammed bin Salman? Right now, Turkey seeing international support is not really forthcoming on this issue. Or will the CIA, the way it released the report saying Mohammed bin Salman knew about it without telling Donald Trump, will they perhaps repeat maybe what they did in Iran and do a coup behind Trump's back, instigate a coup via Ahmed bin Abdulaziz? There are rumors now that he's trying to get princes on board for a coup. Will that happen? These are the two variables that we are looking at.
Okay, listen. Unfortunately, I've got to wrap. Ines Djedidi and Sami Hamdi, thanks so much.